I think I've said it before. I love traveling by train. I think it is the easily best form of transport you can do. It is absolutely fantastic. Love every moment of it. Really do. So it's really frustrating. Really frustrating that I was only in Bruges in Europe just a couple of months ago, and how easy and how regular it was for me to get to Bruges straight to Brussels was so infuriatingly easy with so many trains. Now, just to compare this, if this was sort of a very similar distance, this would be, you know, maybe Leeds to Manchester, as we'll get into a moment, Liverpool to Manchester. It's not that far, but as you know, if you are ever, travel the rails on here in the UK, sometimes getting to some places can be an absolute nightmare. We are, you know, the rail system in this country should be far better, and it is costing local economy billions of pounds. This is one reason why we need HS2, because you get the fast trains off the track, put them on their own section of track, they do their things, and guess what? That frees up more capacity to have more not only local trains but interregional trains as well, meaning better, far more service. And it should shock you if you ever go to London or you travel in and around sort of, the central London area, your trains are absolutely fantastic. It is supremely annoying to go down there and see the level of rail infrastructure that is down there available to people down there, and then to come back up here and just go, what's going on? But this is unfortunately years and years and years of, well, failed essentially privatization that has really gone on here. And I think, as we've often said on the left, we should just, rather than say let's nationalize everything, let's just focus on one industry in particular. So if we can sort of, for example, like nationalize rail, or you've got Keir Starmer's idea, let's have like a nationalized just energy group that focuses on building and investing in renewable energies. That would be fantastic, because then you can say, well, look how amazing, that company is. Let's bring in other companies. Let's nationalize other, energy companies. Or, success will breed more success. And I think that's what a lot of leftists don't seem to really understand. You don't get to nationalize everything, but if you nationalize some things and you show just of how much a success these can actually be, well, then your argument for nationalizing the whole or more of that industry becomes even stronger. So don't be afraid, as we've said before, to maybe get 30% of something. Because if you get 30% of something, it's far better than nothing at all. Plus, you can use that 30% to show just how good your policies and how well a sort of nationalized business or grouping or whatever can do and can achieve. So something for us to certainly sort of think about on the left. But into my talking about trains, because I really had to cover this, because this piece is certainly by Andy Burnham, and as I said before, I definitely think he's definitely going to be a future Labour leader. But certainly with his sort of really barnstorming northern speeches that he's done, and how much he has sort of spoken about investing in the north and unlocking its potential, he has, I think, a massive possibility that if he ever runs and he's like in the Labour cabinet or he's the leader of the Labour Party, he has the potential to absolutely just win the complete north of England for Labour. It's a real possibility. So let's go diving into this piece, because it's really good and just shows you how really bad the northern system of rail really is. But Before we do get into that, please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, well, buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much to all those people who do help and support the channel that way. So over we go to The Guardian today with their title of Think Westminster's a Mess? It's nothing compared to the North's mismanaged rail system. If you want to truly understand the full extent of the country's present dysfunction, forget about the chaos going on in Westminster and instead spend a day trying to travel across the north of England. By now, if the 2019 Tory manifesto is to be believed, we were meant to be experiencing the joys of being leveled up. Instead, people's spirits are being downtrodden by a daily diet of rail chaos. At its best, public transport does not just facilitate the movement of people, it drives social mobility too. Good transport not only connects people with each other, but with work, education, and opportunities. But for far too long, towns and cities across the north have been held back by second-class services and forced to overpay for a network that is too complex, fragmented, mismanagement, and underfunded by the government. Delays, cancellations, overcrowding, and that's just not one bad day. Passengers here have to face months of sustained chaos. If this was happening in London or the southeast, it would be a national scandal and action would be swift. Almost 1 in 5 Transpennine Express services en route between Manchester and Scotland have been cancelled in the last fortnight. With less than 70% of the services running on time, these statistics speak to a disjointed, mismanagement transport system that does not work for ordinary people, and it's not the first time we've been here. In 2019, we successfully led the campaign to strip Northern of its franchises after years of poor performance. 3 years on, though, little has changed. The daily reality facing people remains the same. Urgent appointments missed, late arrival at work or school, cut off from vital public services, isolated from friends and families, and some people put in dangerous situations. Only last week, a young girl fainted while travelling on a packed 3-carriage northern service between Liverpool and Manchester during a busy morning rush hour. If these problems are allowed to persist, we will be stuck with a car-led recovery that threatens the irreversible damage to the North's net zero targets. At this crucial time for the health of our planet and even local economies, rail is not pulling its weight. And by the way, what a fantastic slogan, by the way. Just as a brief aside, what a fantastic slogan that would be as a form of campaign. Think about that. All this public transport that the Tories have meant to be doing, well, guess what? Rail's not pulling its weight. You can see the campaign ad there of some, be it Rishi Sunak, even Boris Johnson, with, quote, leveling up with trying to pull along a train with the slogan underneath of rail's not pulling its weight. What a campaign that would be. Can I just stress how good that would be, especially targeting the North? What a campaign that would be. But I'm not I'm not in the Labour campaign movement. At least, maybe one day, who knows. But guys, if anyone is watching that right there, that is a campaign slogan worth using. But anyway, back to it. But it would be unfair to lay all the fault of solely at the door of rail operators. The government must bear some of the blame. That is why we are calling on whoever is Transport Secretary when this Tory game of musical chairs is over to take immediate action and an urgent injection of funds into both the ailing Northern franchises and the failing Avanti West Coast. If that call is not heard in the echo chambers of Downing Street, we are left with 2 options. Whether it is disbanding the Transpennine Express and Northern running them as one unified Northwest operator, or allowing services within the region to be run as part of a very successful Merseyrail concession, something needs to be done. The loss of productivity caused by poor public transport is costing our economy billions of pounds. And this is something else that I'm surprised never gets brought up. Whenever we hear about like lost productivity or anything like that, no one ever really talks about how poor public transport does massively contribute to poor performance and poor productivity. You would think maybe this would be at the heart of like the leveling up, which was it was meant to be. And one of the things I've often said, one of the shocking statistics, I don't know about sort of the rest of the region, but I know in South Yorkshire, 1 in 5 people will turn down a job because they can't actually get there. That just goes to show you how bad public transport is. That, to be honest, I don't know about the rest of the country, but that should be a national scandal. And if I was an MP living in South Yorkshire, I'd be using this as a constant shout at, whoever is the transport secretary. And I would certainly be doing this at PMQs constantly. But there you go. So instead of being a driver for growth, the railways are not holding back our region's prosperity, but the rest of the UK too. And when you look at the financial investment that we receive, it's easy to see why our productivity lags behind other regions. In the north, transport spending is £349 per person. In London, it's at 864. And across the past decade, that's £86 billion more pumped into the capital. And we are not being critical of investment in the south, but concerned about the lack of investment in the north. And if you remember when we did our interview with Gareth Dennis, he said the same thing. You've got all this investment that does be needed to happen in the south, but the fact that it is not even being matched in the north is shocking. But it just goes to show you the priority the government really has, and that they were never really serious about levelling up. But back to it. So securing our region's wider connectivity to the rest of our country is vital for our long-term economic success. One of the few promising announcements from Liz Truss' very short-term tenure as Prime Minister was her promise to deliver Northern Powerhouse Rail in full, including a new twin-track line running from Liverpool to Hull. Whoever succeeds her must make good on that promise. Good connectivity isn't and shouldn't be solely focused on building better lines between north and south. To rebalance the UK economy, we need west to east connectivity too. But before we get ahead of ourselves with talks of high-speed rail, the most pressing issue right now is that this essential network is barely moving. We say enough is enough. The North deserves a far more better than a second-class rail service. It's time for action. And yeah, what a call to action Andy Burnham has given there. Like I say, you can see why I've said before, this guy is a future Labour leader. He is, and whenever he does run, whenever he's sort of finished up in Manchester, I guarantee you he will be on the benches and probably brought very, very quickly into a sort of cabinet position or shadow cabinet position, depending, of course, where we are in all this. But I completely agree with him. The rail transport in the north of England is an absolute nightmare. We've got very much, north to south rails running, but if you're trying to get across the country, east to west, good luck. You've often very much got to go all the way down south just to go back up north in a massive sort of V shape. It's ridiculous when you've got to do some of these ridiculous rail travel links. I mean, Hull, trying to get to Hull from Manchester, nightmare. Nightmare. But there you go. So that's why I want to be griping more again about the state of rails. Hopefully, Labour will and should definitely take the message to heart that rail desperately needs to be really sorted out. Not just, HS2 and its northern leg, but also regional rail as well. And obviously not just focusing on the north, but for the whole of the country as well. Connectivity is massively important as it was laid out there, economically, socially, opportunity, massive for everyone up and down this country. So it is a call definitely worth heeding, and one that we should really, especially if we're us up in the north, should really start to bang the drum about. So one of the best ways to do that is, as you know, write to your MP. So do tell them. If you are, by the way, if you are a regular rail user and you experience like horrific rail travel on like a daily basis, write to your MP. Seriously. And not just once. Write to them again and again. Become a regular fixture in their inbox. If you write to them once and they don't reply, keep on writing to them. Refer to your last letter. Say, oh, in my last letter, I told you about this absolutely, awful experience on my rails. Well, I'm here today to tell you the other really bad experience I had on, trying to either get home or get to work, or, tell them just how bad this situation really is. It will work. Even if they don't respond initially the first time, keep on writing to them, because trust me, it does work. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. And of course, as always, please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button on your way out. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you all next time.